Welcome to One Thought at a Time with Ian Travers, where we get curious about what makes us tick. We're here today with a woman who leads powerful women. Welcome, Natalie Hendricks.
Thank you, Ian. It's lovely to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to meet face to face.
Yes.
Something I know that the last couple of years of COVID hasn't made possible, but really appreciate the time. So let's get into the conversation.
Yes.
Natalie, kick us off. What do you do?
So I am a female coach, and I empower women to be brave and bold in their leadership. And primarily it's about women taking the bull by the horns and thinking about where are they at currently in life and how do they want to move forward. I'm all about personal growth, personal development, and I truly believe that each and every woman and male for that matter has that brave, bold kind of female within them. Yeah. And it's about how we bring that out, how we embrace that to enable people to truly live life consciously and on their terms.
Yeah.
I said to you before, I see so many females living on autopilot, kind of glazed-eyed. And for me, that was a trigger through working in my corporate career, which we'll come on to, and then making the decision to become a coach and be self-employed. Yeah. How can I support women to kind of get that passion back, to get that fire back in their belly?
Brilliant.
And to truly think about what it is that they truly want. You know, are they aligned to what I describe as your North Star and your passion? And if not, why not?
Yeah.
Because life's for living.
You use that phrase, living intentionally as well, which I absolutely love, is that, not letting a moment slip by and being in the moment, I think is really important.
Completely. I mean, I can reflect and count several times where I've kind of had that Monday blues feeling, oh, we're back, or countdown to Friday, and just not living purposely, not living consciously, not looking up and looking around and experiencing life for what it is. And that's not being away with the fairies. It's just being conscious about, am I showing up as I want to wholeheartedly?
Yeah.
Am I feeling as though I'm making a difference?
Yeah.
And I suppose the trigger for me was I knew I had more to give in life. And that sounds quite grand. But for me, there was this feeling, this inner knowing, this intuition inside me. I was kind of not listening to it. I was allowing the kind of macro noise to drown that out. And I was like, let's just focus in on that intuition and think about what is it that you truly want to do? How do you want to show up? Yeah. Do you feel aligned with kind of the direction of life that, is ahead of you?
And it's the thing is, the thing I find fascinating in this whole space is so many people will go through their days, weeks, life, years, paying no attention to that at all, and almost being it's invisible to them as well.
It is. I often describe, just on that point, to a lot of my clients about the ability to kind of really tune into your intuition, because we don't do it, like you say. We allow that to just kind of pass us on by. And I describe it as, if you think about an orchestra, you've got the kind of, your intuition is what I would say is your piccolo in that orchestra.
Right.
It's that tiny kind of high vibe noise that's there, and it contributes to the overall sound, but we don't tune in and we don't listen to that. Yeah. We're kind of distracted by the drums and the brass and everything that's going on. Yeah. But when we truly start to hone in, we see how that intuition, that piccolo, truly contributes to that overall sound, that overall direction of what is life, what do we want to be showing up as, how do we want to be.
I love that picture. Yeah. That's really powerful, isn't it? The sound of that little tiny sound. We do drown so much stuff out, and we haven't got one in the room today, but our smart devices help us drown stuff out, don't they?
Completely.
In those moments where we might have been silent before, we fill that silence with the latest social feed, which has a place,
of course.
But I think it's just taken. I don't know whose quote it was, but someone said that the greatest inventions in life have been conceived in moments of silence. So if you don't listen to yourself. So, how did you end up here? Tell us your story. How did you get here? What were the twists and turns?
So I'm one of three brothers. Mum and dad always been very hardworking. My dad's always run his own business in the construction world, which is worlds away from where I am now. But my brothers all kind of followed the trend of my father, which was to work for the family company. And I, as the only female in the household, other than my mum, who was teaching assistant, but was very much at home with us as children as we were growing up, almost repelled that from an early age. I'm not doing it that way. I'm going to do my own thing. So I was like, and for me at that time, because it was the family business, it was, I'm going to go out into the big corporate world. I'm going to get my first job, and I'm going to, I'm going to do well. I'm going to show these guys, the kind of inner feminist in me coming out there. I will do it. And I did do it. So I very much started went to university, traveled the world for 12 months, which is amazing experiences, kind of gave me that life experience. And then kind of stepped into recruitment. So recruitment consultancy, loved it, loved working with people, loved talking, as you know.
That's quite a competitive environment as well, isn't it?
Very competitive. And I was successful at it, did really well, but the sales eventually just got me to the point where I was like, this is not for me. I don't feel like it's really authentic to who I am. So that pushed me into the world of HR. And hence my kind of corporate HR career, HR leadership development kind of bloomed from there. And I just kind of went through the motions, to be fair, and personal life, met somebody, got married at an early age, and it started and finished within about a 7-year span, was married for 12 months. But when that marriage broke down, and I talk about this openly because I think it's important that people know that we all go through things in life, and there's no shame in that. It's about the learning you gain from it.
Yeah.
But what that personal experience did for me in my corporate role, I just went head down, and I was like, boop, 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 and I just went higher and higher and higher and kept going and going and going to got to quite a senior position in my corporate career.
Yeah.
And then I had one of those moments where I stopped. I was like, how have I got here?
Right.
I enjoyed it. I was successful, but is this truly what I want to be doing?
Yeah.
So senior BP, business partner, leadership development, a lot of executive coaching, working with directors, exec directors.
Yeah.
And I think I'd always prided myself on almost, it sounds cringy saying it now, being with people of high profile nature, high profile roles, etc. And I almost valued that in terms of that was my worth.
Yes.
And then I stopped. I met my now husband. I've got my 2 young kids who are 6 and 4. And the pandemic hit. And when my kids were younger, before the pandemic, I was literally traveling on the road constantly.
Yeah.
And I'm talking day in, day out. I live up north, I was down south, and it was just continuous.
Yeah.
I was literally living on autopilot. And it wasn't until pandemic hit that I stopped, and I was like, this is not for me. I always knew there was that more. I could give more. And the coaching always fired me up. I just enjoyed, helping to help people. I kind of described my coaching as you dancing in the wind. You're dancing in the wind because you don't know which point you're going to get to, but it's about supporting people, enabling them to kind of really be experts of their own subject matter.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything. We're just helping to guide people to enable them to get to their best self.
Helping them unpack their own thoughts, because it's messy up there, isn't it?
Exactly. It completely is. And that's messy based on, life experience. It's ingrained behaviours. It's beliefs from when we were kids. And people don't stop and realise they've got a choice. They've got a choice to change some of that up. And I just thought to myself, if I can start to help one person, which might contribute to 2 people and 3 and so on and so forth, then how rewarding is that? So my world now is I still have my corporate role, it's condensed, but I have my own business where I'm supporting women to be brave, to be bold in their leadership. And it's allowed me and given me a real sense of perspective around, well, what's important to you, Natalie? It's not the next promotion. It's not the high paid salary. Yeah. It's the freedom. It's about being able to be with my kids and see them on a morning and a night time, and also, experience just stopping. I always use the phrase, the power of the pause. The power to pause, the power to reflect, the power to just look up and around and see what's there and available to you. Yeah. And I truly believe when you're on autopilot, because being my own experience, I didn't do that.
Yeah. We actually fill in our own gaps, don't we?
Of course we do, yeah.
You mentioned that word freedom. So what does that mean to you?
Freedom for me is time. So free time to do, not as I please, but time to just have the ability to stop, to live life on my own terms, to live life consciously rather than it almost being dictated by others. Yeah. There's that sense of control. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I like things to be in order and, a certain way about doing things, but having that flexibility, I think, just gives you that ability to live life to the fullest.
It's interesting, isn't it? I often hear people use phrases like, I can't do that, or I must do that, or I should do that. And that's almost you're definitely not living life intentionally there, are you? It might be just a turn of phrase, but that's powerful language, isn't it?
It is, and I'm smiling because I had a client who we really honed in on the language she was using, and she kept saying, "I need to, I need to," and I was like, you need to or you want to? Subtle change, but the outlook's very different, and I do think that. So I'm an English graduate, so words and language and all that jazz is, it's really powerful to me. And I just think the language that we use is the narrative that we are feeding ourselves day in, day out. And, if you tell yourself something enough times, you start to believe it.
Oh, absolutely. Right or wrong.
Yeah, completely.
Right or wrong.
And there was a quote that I read a few months ago, which was the most powerful voice that you should be listening to is your own, because that's the one that's talking to you every day.
There was I so agree with that. And I was a running event a few years ago now, and we were talking about who's your most vocal and powerful coach. Well, it's you. And someone said, I get that. And I said, why do you get that? He says, because your mouth is the closest to your ear.
Completely.
And I thought,
that is completely true.
It's true though, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And it's, when I speak to my clients, especially female clients, whom suffer, I include myself in that, with imposter.
Right.
And
so
that
tell me a
whole
bit about this.
self-talk piece.
Yeah. So tell us more about that.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask you about why focus on the female coaching as well. So
yeah, I think for me the female element is I am a female, and B, in my corporate role, being surrounded by so many females with such potential who are stopping themselves from excelling or just taking that step. Yeah. And a lot of times it has been based upon the narrative that they're telling themselves, the imposter that's stopping them, that's paralyzing them with fear.
Yeah.
And for me, I was kind of like, I can see very much how I didn't use my voice sometimes. Whilst I was successful, I didn't sometimes use my voice. I wasn't always true to myself in terms of what I really felt.
Yeah.
And sometimes in particularly male dominated environments, was quite quiet or would kind of nod, but not truly share how I was feeling. So I was kind of like, if there was anybody else that I can see who is exhibiting those behaviours or, acting as I did act at times, then if I can help them to have that voice, to have that power within, to speak up and to kind of drown out the noise of that imposter, then that's really powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things that I pride myself in terms of my own leadership is, whether I'm coaching you, whether I'm sat here having this conversation with you, whether I'm in my corporate role, the Natalie you see here is the Natalie you would see anywhere else. Yes, there's circumstances where you change your style slightly. Yeah. But I truly believe that I am authentic to myself now. And I think for a lot of time, I wasn't always that way.
Right.
And I think that was based on fear. What will people think of me?
That's interesting, that, isn't it? The other thing I wonder, and it's women in the workplace, particularly, where, they are in a minority. I wonder, is there another pressure there where, is there almost that perception that's maybe you feel you're expected to be overly vocal sometimes, and that's also then can be putting pressure on as well. It's quite a complicated place, isn't it? It
all comes to the word balance for me. And I think you're right. I think there's an expectation. I think there's an expectation that you're almost... I talk a lot about feminine and masculine energy. And I think it's about how you embrace both, because there's a place for both. But I think sometimes, particularly in corporate, there's an expectation that you will be more of that masculine energy. She's coming. She's saying it as it. She can hold her own with the men, rather than actually just being yourself. And for me, there's far more power in being authentic and finding that balance of both your feminine and your masculine energy and showing up as you are. You don't need to be in the boardroom with the the suits on and feel like you're competing. You can just be yourself as you are. But I think there is an ingrained fear that if I do that, what will they think of me? Will it be, out you go, let's bring in the next one that can hold their own? Because you can do it, but in your own way. And I think that's the important thing, isn't it? Is whoever we're working with in this space, it's helping people unpack who are they? Who is that person? And I suppose there comes the time that actually, if the person you want to be
doesn't fit where you are, then you need to take control, don't you?
Yeah. All about control, isn't it?
Yes.
It truly is, though. But it's the we operate from a place of fear, largely, because the brain's here and it's trying to protect us all the time.
Yeah.
So there's a place for that. But we ultimately feel safer when we can control things and things feel comfortable. But then I always say to my friends and to my colleagues and my clients, wouldn't it be fantastic if you could just step outside of that comfort zone and not feel stagnant and not feel like this is just, the motions?
Yeah.
That you can actually kind of break through that breakthrough point and feel the other side of being in that uncomfortable zone for a second, which might feel uncomfortable, but ultimately that is where the magic then happens. And that's where you start to feel, right, there is more outside of this place,
Pushing through it, isn't it? Go in the other side. There's a book, isn't there? Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because, fear's there because we're conditioned by whatever's gone before to feel that way. So, and we can change that.
Yeah, of course. But it's all, it kind of stems back for me, Ian, all to mindset and to identity. Because ultimately, I'm a huge believer that we operate based on our existence, where we've come from, who we are, what our identity is, our beliefs, our religion. All of these elements contribute to who we are today, how we're showing up, what's our narrative that we're telling ourselves and other people. Yeah. And that is defined by the habits.
Yes.
And however we are behaving and the habits that we've got is defining who we are right now. Yeah. And people often have a fear of breaking those habits. But ultimately, it's kind of like, I always say, I'm not one for New Year's resolutions, because that's then a battle of just willpower. And
you be both.
I'm like, no, this don't work for me. I'm like, if you want to change it, you have to be thoughtful about who are you and what are you trying to be? What do you want to achieve? Because that's about your identity for me. And until you start to think like that person, that future version of yourself, it's just a battle of willpower. And eventually, you'll revert back to type.
Yeah. Particularly when the pressure's on as well.
Completely.
Yeah, I smile as well on the New Year's resolution, because the last couple of years I've put something out on YouTube about New Year's resolutions and saying just don't do it. Yeah. Because what I feel is that resolutions, they're not yours, they're someone else's. Yeah. You're doing, I'm going to lose weight. Why? Well, because I think I should. I'm going to run a 10K. Why? Oh, because I think I should. Yeah. It's all for someone else,
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Rather than, we'll just work out, over a cup of tea or something at the start of the year in January. That's a good time as ever. But work out what you would like to do for you.
But that's the hardest question.
Yes.
So with my clients, I always say to them, they always think I'm being, here she goes, harsh Natalie's coming in. And I'm like, I'm not being harsh, but, what do you think? What would you like? What's important to you? And the answer I often get initially is, I don't know. And I say, you do know. You just haven't looked. You just need to be more curious. That's part of the fun. That's part of the journey. I was talking to a client yesterday who said, I just don't know what it is that I want to do. And I say, but that's part of the fun. That's being curious, being open-minded to testing stuff rather than just closed book, fixed mindset to, no, I don't know, so I'll just keep doing what I'm doing.
And maybe sometimes there's fear here as well, isn't there? That, and maybe the little narrative in your head is, I don't want to answer that question because I might be afraid of the answer.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I coach beginner runners as well, and it's quite interesting unpacking why people run. And I know this from personal experience. I started running in 2001, and it took me almost 2 years to work out why I ran. But as soon as you worked out why, it's easy after that.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, still makes you work hard, but it's different, isn't it? And it's the same with everything we do, isn't it? Finding that why. Tell me a bit about I think you call it the Brave, Bold Female Retreat.
I do.
I'm fascinated by that.
Love them. So when I first set up my business, it was all about coaching, and I've got a Brave, Bold Female leadership program as well. But I always knew, this is the traveller in me, that I wanted to host my own retreat.
Okay. And
the vision was always, I'm going to go abroad. It's going to be, the spa and everything. But I was kind of like, right, if I could combine the luxury of hosting a retreat somewhere, whether that's in the UK or that's abroad, with the ability for females to come together, to have the power of connection, to understand, see that other women are experiencing the same things that they are feeling and experiencing, and have the opportunity to just shut off from day-to-day life and really embrace themselves in the moment, the conscious living, then how powerful would that be? So I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give this a whirl. So we've hosted 2 of our Brave Bold Female retreats already in the UK.
Okay.
One was in the Yorkshire Dales and one was in Cheshire. And then we have an overnight long weekend one coming up in October, which is also going to be in the UK, purely because of everything that's been going on with travel restrictions. But the aim is that as we move into the new year, that there'll be one abroad. But Ian, let me tell you, these retreats are so powerful. I mean, the emotion in the room, we keep it tight, so we keep it 10 or less, and that is purposeful. Because it's not for me about having 50, 60 people in the room. And when I say the power of connection, it sounds cheesy, but truly, when you bring together like-minded women who are all in a safe space where they can share how they're feeling, it's just amazing what people get out of the day. And it's rewarding for my own self. But typically, the retreats so far have stemmed around kind of 3 key areas, which are around identity, understanding who I am, how I show up, what it is that how I've got to this point in life. Then we focus in on mindset. So we kind of zoom in and say, okay, so if this is my identity, what does that mean for my mindset? Because I am of the opinion that your mindset's almost like a house. If the foundations are not in place, then it's going to come tumbling down.
Absolutely.
You might have success for a moment in time, but eventually it's going to creep up on you. So let's get really clear in terms of what's my mindset. Let's get those solid foundations in place.
Love it.
And then thinking about what are those things that will enable us to be successful. So what are my boundaries? That self-respect for my own self. My boundary between you and I, etc. And just give people tools, tips, techniques, exercises. We do a lot around body and mind connection, how we connect the two. It really enables you to excel. So it's a day of learning, activity, getting involved, having that downtime. I'm a huge fan of meditation because that's really helped me to kind of be purposeful, set the tone of my day. So there's a lot that we pack into there, but people have just been raving about it. And they were like, just do more. We need longer because the connection has really helped us to see.
I think that's really, I'm really, really curious about that because it's something that I've thought about for a while is how do you, rather than just spending a few hours with someone, how do you really make that difference? Because I know in the coaching space as well, mentoring space, whatever it is, you to change those habits, it can be quite difficult. The meditation piece as well, I find this an interesting one, this, because as we go through sort of life, things become hip and trendy, and a lot of people have talked about mindfulness and meditation, and sometimes I think we lose some of the goodness in the hype, because meditation means many things to many people, but it's basically being still, isn't it? And just taking time. Interesting fact, isn't there, that I think we spend more time looking after our teeth than we do our mental well-being. But you can even meditate whilst you're doing your teeth.
Of course you can. And I think that there's a kind of misconception around meditation that people think it is about being still. It's been about mindful, but for me, it's about focus. And I was one of these that always told myself, well, I can't do that because I'm an extrovert and I can't sit still and it's just not for me. And then I kind of gave it a go because it was something I was always really curious about. And for me, it's just, I describe it as, it's the calm. So I meditate every morning. I'm not talking about sat in a lotus position for 50 minutes, 60 minutes. I'm talking 10 minutes max. I've got young kids. I might distract them and but it's the first thing I do. So when you were talking earlier about distractions, social media, etc. Old Natalie would be, wake up, alarm, snooze, snooze, snooze. Oh, I'll look at my phone. What's going on in the world? And for me, it was all that toxicity was feeding my brain and setting out my day. So for me, it's about wake up, go downstairs, pop the kettle on, sit down. I have a little corner. It's my space. It's inviting. It's somewhere I want to go to where I just have 10 minutes of calm. And sometimes it's guided. Sometimes it's just music on. Sometimes it's just doing, as you said, sitting still and listening to my breath. But it sets me up for the day. And I do not look at my phone until I have done that. Because it's just putting my mindset into the right frame of mind to take on the day.
Yeah.
Now, that's not saying I'm zen all day long. But, it's just, it just has made such a difference to me.
Yeah.
And, for people that say I can't do it, if you just sit for 30 seconds, just listen to your breath, inhale and exhale.
Yeah.
Instantly, you feel calmer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone can do that.
It's not to be underestimated. I mean, I've many of us have, I'm sure, struggled with stresses and stuff, but I used to fly quite a lot, and for a long while I had quite a fear of flying. But then the power of just a few moments, just, even if you use the app on your phone about, the breath app.
Yeah.
And that's what it's got me more and more curious over the years about the connection between mind and body, because they're not separated, they are the same. And that's why I'm really curious about, the retreat as well, because I think bringing those together, I think that sounds a mighty powerful thing.
My husband does an exercise during the workshop. So he's a personal trainer by trade, but is holistic coach as well. So we talk a lot about working out. And he kind of positions the session about working in. So thinking about your chakras and thinking about what is it that you need to do, that movement piece in terms of that physiology, can never say it, and how that connects to our mind.
Yeah.
Because the two can operate on their own to a degree.
Yeah.
But when they're connected, that's really when you start to maximise and optimise in terms of who you are, how you're showing up, etc.
Yeah.
And it's simple things like, power poses and you're tricking the brain constantly, but that is all ways of feeding and fueling that mind and body connection.
Yeah.
And, you just mentioned about running. You can't deny it. You can tell yourself, your brain will be saying, no, I don't want to do it. But when you go out there, you do genuinely feel better after you have moved your body. And then the endorphins are raising, and it helps with everything around risk tolerance, etc. and just enables you to be a bit braver.
We generate our own drugs.
Of course.
And when you realise that, it's uncanny. I have never, in all the years I've run, I have never come in from a run feeling bad.
Yeah.
I might feel tired and achy or whatever, but never bad.
No.
And we've got it there. It's on tap, isn't it? It's absolutely on tap.
It is. So for me, there's a real, identity, mindset, mind and body connection. It's critical to your success. And whilst I work with a lot of women in the leadership space, I suppose where I feel I am slightly different is that for me, all of that contributes to you being that optimum leader. Because any of us can be leaders. This is not just a leader in a corporate setting. I truly believe that we're all leaders at heart. Yeah. But it's about tapping into almost those different elements that contribute to who you are and how you're showing up.
Yeah. I mean, leadership, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I know when I've spoken about leadership before we can lead others, let's lead ourselves.
Absolutely. It starts with number one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I'm not convinced by my own self, then I'm sure as heck not going to convince other people either.
It's interesting. I was with someone this week who was describing, they actually described their own team. They said, when you've got like the angel on my left shoulder and I've got the devil on my right shoulder, well, there's two members of your team, and there's a lot more in there. Exactly. And it's trying to get all that under control first of all.
Definitely.
What's your next project?
Oh, so I have just set up my Brave Bold Female Leadership Programme, which is a rolling programme for females to jump onto, which is working with me coaching, but also a lot of resource content aligned to specific leadership pillars. There's 3 key leadership pillars around leadership: brand, mindset, and style. So we're really promoting that at the minute. I am thoughtful about doing my own podcast here, so there's a few tips here. Okay. But just maximising on the retreat as well. And I think for me, it's about just being content with how things are going and just enabling and putting myself out there more and, not wanting the next big thing, because I just feel more content in the sense that I know things will come and life evolves. So it's about let's keep to continue and evolve what we've got in place at the minute and just enjoy that.
Oh, I think that's so powerful, isn't it? It's not about chasing turnover, revenue, likes or whatever. I think if you just keep doing what you're passionate about, the next door will open.
Yeah. I always say there's 2 C's, commitment and consistency. And to my clients, commit wholeheartedly and be consistent. So keep showing up, keep doing it day in, day out. As long as you're passionate about it, eventually, naturally the cycle will just keep continuing.
And people see that, don't they?
Absolutely.
People see when you're passionate about something, it just shines, it radiates.
It does.
We could talk for ages on this. I'd like to ask you one more question. And I ask the same of this of everyone who comes in. Imagine we can conquer time travel. So let's just take that as an assumption. But now you can write yourself a letter, Natalie. So you can write it on a piece of paper and put it in an envelope and leave it somewhere for the younger Natalie to find. What would you write on it, knowing what you know today?
This is a very good question, Ian. And I think for me, it would be just trust. Just trust in being yourself wholeheartedly. And that sounds quite simple, doesn't it? But I think often I know for me growing up, it was all about seeking that recognition and external validation. And now it's about self-acceptance.
Yeah.
So if I could tell my younger self one thing, it would be just trust in the process, but trust in yourself and be yourself wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Because we're all different, and that's the beauty of life. But it's about being true to yourself. And I think sometimes I haven't necessarily done that. And now, having stepped into that version of myself, it just feels so much more powerful and so much more, I'm just able to enjoy life more.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Natalie, thank you ever so much.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and obviously if anyone wants to find anything out about the Brave Bold Female Retreat, then of course reach out to you.
Yes, absolutely. You can find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, at I am Natalie Hendricks.
Brilliant. Natalie, thanks ever so much.
Pleasure. Thank you ever so much.
This has been One Thought at a Time with Ian Travers and our guest this time, Natalie Hendricks. So I hope you've enjoyed watching. Please share and like if you've done so, and do enjoy the rest of our podcasts. And of course, reach out to Natalie or myself if you want to find out anything more. See you next time.